Hey everybody, welcome to the Van Life Summit.
My name is Caroline, and I'm here with my husband Paul, and we are the publishers of Vintage Camper Trailers magazine, as well as the authors of two books on the vintage camper trailer hobby. We are in charge of several rallies a year where vintage camper trailers meet and camp together, and we have hosted boot camp, which teaches people how to restore their trailers.
We own about a dozen of these trailers right now, everything from the 1930s to the 1950s. We have a 55 Spartan, we have a 1959 Shasta we've had for over a decade, and we're going to tell you all about how we got started and how we just got involved with the hobby many years ago. You're going to unavoidably see my eyes darting around. We're a two-man show, and so I'm running the slideshow, and I apologize for that in advance, but if you bear with us, we're going to cover a lot for you today and tell you how we did it on a budget and how you can probably do it on a budget as well. Is vintage trailering a option for you? We're going to cover building on a budget and why even getting the Van Life Academy All Access Pass is valid whether you're building a van or a vintage trailer. We're going to cover how you can acquire a vintage trailer, how we do it, and we'll also show you some video throughout this presentation of the rallies that we do and what we do with our trailers once we have them restored. And at the end of our presentation, you can watch that video in full if you'd like. So without further ado, tell them how we got started.
So I get a little teary thinking about this, but our kids are out of the house now, but when we had babies back in 2009, you can see them there. We were cheap. We were on a single budget. I was a stay-at-home mom, and I grew up camping and being outdoors, and I wanted my kids to have that same experience. So we decided to try camping, and one day my husband came home all excited. He had gone to town, and he's like, I found a trailer, and it was $500, and we bought a 1962 Dalton, and that's what started it all, is that little trailer right there, and you can see my kids. And it just changed our life, and you can see the kids here in high school, and they grew up in this hobby. You have to take it.
So it is all consuming for us. We have been at it a long time and watched the kids grow up. This is our 1959 Shasta, and that photo was one that was done for one of our books, for the Vintage Camper Trailers Rallies book. And so anyways, I want to touch on a little bit of really what is a vintage camper. There's a lot of eye candy out there, and you see a lot of stuff. This is actually a very early pre-war, about a 1936-ish Airstream, believe it or not. And back then, before the war, they were made out of masonite. And so that's a very unusual trailer. I know of a couple of them that have been restored, but you're probably not going to see one of those just at a rally. What you're more going to see is something like this, a 1960s Shasta trailer. And this one's all, restored, fixed up, vintage awning, sitting at a rally in Santa Cruz, actually. But this is a real popular style, and of course the one with the wings. So when people think of vintage trailers, a lot of times they think of Shastas or maybe Airstreams. And but there's a lot of different ones. So in the 40s, you had more of a breadloaf style trailer, and you can see why they're called that. This one actually looks like a breadloaf shape. This is a Westcraft trailer, or a Westwood. I'm sorry, Westwood Coronado. This one, and in a beautiful, retro 1940s color at a rally in San Dimas. And then the other real typical trailer, this is another Shasta, but what we refer to as a canned ham, and it's kind of obvious why we call it a canned ham, because it looks exactly like one. The other trailer that people associate with vintage trailering is, of course, Airstreams. And this one's a little newer, up in the 70s, but, Airstreams are kind of timeless. They I don't want to say look the same because there are big differences, but they are kind of a timeless, iconic trailer, and have been around since, like I said, the 30s. And this is probably a late 40s Airstream from when the Wally Byam was doing the caravans. But they're just a classic staple in the hobby. And then now, with the lack of inventory and the trailers becoming scarcer and harder to find those old ones, we've got the 60s and the 70s when they started getting a little more boxy. This is a low liner, which is what we started restoring. We restored several of these, I don't know, 15 years ago, something like that.
At least 15
At least.
years ago.
When we started, we just stumbled on it. We bought one cheap and flipped it and had a good time with it. The main thing with vintage trailers, the main difference in them is a lot of them are what we call stick framed, and so the frames are made of wood. The trailers like the Streamline there on the left, or the Silver Streak, or that's our 1955 Spartan there on the right, are all metal frame trailers, and so you have a lot less rot issues to deal with when you're doing a restoration on these. And they just tow nicely. They're real durable going down the road. And I threw in a little image there. The Vintage Trailer Field Guide is a great little book for identifying a lot of these different trailers and types of trailers and that type of thing. So, yeah, with a vintage trailer, you can build on a budget. You can buy a restored trailer if you'd like, but they can be pretty spendy. If you look on our classifieds and whatnot, you can see that, some of the restored trailers can be pretty spendy. You can also maybe acquire somebody's project that they got started, and this is always a little scary to me because
Me too.
you didn't take it apart, you didn't mark it, you didn't see it before you started, so this is probably not always your best bet.
For a budget. Now, if you want to be creative and start a project, great. But it takes a special person to do that.
Yeah, and getting a trailer, when you looking for a trailer, getting a trailer for free is probably not always your best bet. So you want to find something kind of the best thing that you can afford in a state that you can do the restoration, because if you have to pay for it, it's going to get expensive. So when it comes to finding a vintage trailer, we've got a few ways that we go about it. Why don't you touch on?
So when we look for vintage camper trailers and thinking about getting something, like when we bought our very first trailer, we found it in somebody's yard. It had a $500 for sale sign on it, and that's how we found it. And people have asked us over the years, how do we find them? And the thing is, Paul always told them, he said, drive a different way home. Tell everybody you know that you're looking for a project, if it's a van, if it's a vintage trailer, whatever kind of project that you want to get into, tell everybody you know what you're looking for. It will be shocking to find out who has what laying around in their backyard or garage. So tell people. And then we just do the normal looking. We're not afraid to knock on people's doors. That's how we usually find our trailers. And then word of mouth over the years, because we are so immersed in the hobby, is definitely helpful.
The looking over fences and letting everybody you know what you're looking for are the key things, because everybody else is looking on Marketplace. They're looking on Facebook or Craigslist, or, everybody and their uncle is doing that. The other good place to turn is the trailer-specific websites. We have a classified on our website, or you can just go to buyvintagetrailers.com, and then other groups like Tin Can Tourists, and I'm sure others have sites as well where you can just specifically look. We even have a spot where you can look for project trailers, and those are trailers that are under $2,500, so that's another source.
And what you're seeing right now is a video of a rally.
No.
We're not showing a video.
No.
Well, you'll see a video of a rally, going to rallies, looking at trailers at rallies, and finding out what you like.
There you go.
will give you a better idea. There's a video. That'll give you a better idea of what you're looking for, and oftentimes people will have things for sale at a rally as well.
This video that's looping is one from our Trailer Fest events, and like I say, you can watch the whole thing at the end. Camping World came and did a piece on us, and that's what's showing right now. One of the things that makes a vintage trailer more budget friendly is the fact that there's just less surfaces. You know, you don't have as much to restore, frankly. I mean, you can do something like this with a little bit of a retro modern type of touch, or go more traditional, more classic with the stained wood and the varnishes and things, and do a restoration project that's a little more true to the vintage vibe, if you will. But there's no right or wrong answers for this. It's as you like.
The other thing about having a budget on a vintage trailer versus something else, it doesn't have a motor. And my husband is an incredible woodworker. Motors, not so much. So it depends on what your strengths are. And so for us, not having a motor was important. We have a new truck that we tow our vintage with, and it works well for our budget that way.
And with vintage trailers, when you're sourcing parts and things, obviously a lot of these parts aren't made anymore. But with vintage trailers, they were assembled with a lot of common parts. So a door handle for a Shasta is the same as a door handle for an Aljo or any other trailer of that period almost. Companies like Bargman made most of the components, and it's just a universal part from one trailer to another. So when you're looking for parts for vintage trailers and you want true original parts that aren't being reproduced, a lot of them cross over, like taillights and door handles and fixtures and things like that. So that can keep your costs down, just because there are a fair amount of them out in the market. Also, there's less systems. You can see this little trailer here on the screen is just a little canned ham. There's no bathroom to mess with. It's got a gas stove, which is pretty straightforward. They tend to work. It's not so component heavy that you're going to need a lot of skills to get that type of stuff working. And when we're at a rally, like you see here in the video, we've got bathrooms accessible to us, and we plug into 110-volt power, and you know, it works out just fine. So the other great thing about a budget with camping on a budget with a vintage trailer is that they're small. You know, you can get a small canned ham that you can tow with almost anything and hit the road, and you don't have to have a big fancy truck or spend a lot of money in fuel. Sorry, we're switching screens here, and want to touch on some things when you are going to buy a vintage trailer and what you're going to look for. This is the arch nemesis right here in this slide, is the water damage that you see in the corners. And this is real typical in the back corners. In the screen below here, you can see the vent, and while this one isn't bad, you can still see some moisture damage. And once you see moisture damage in the vent, there's moisture damage everywhere else.
And I'm going to just say that any 50s stick framed trailer that you find, like a little canned ham or a chat, you know, those little trailers, you're going to have water damage. You're going to have wood rot, and it's almost always down in the corners on the frame and around the windows, around the vents. You got to pick up, you see that mattress that holds all that moisture in the back there, and those are the places you need to look. It's all fixable depending on your skill, but those are the things when you're trying to buy the best trailer you can afford. Those are things to be aware of.
Yeah, and we'll touch on how to fix some of these things in just a second. And thanks for chiming in. I feel like I'm doing all the talking. This is a floor. This is a trailer we owned probably 10 years ago. And
or 20.
It's been a long time. Neat trailer, and it looked really neat in person. But even this one had soft floors as good as these old original vintage floors look. You can see water damage here along the bottom of the door. And I'd say that, this is one of the main things you're going to look for with a vintage trailer, especially a stick-framed 50s trailer, is the water damage and just how much there is and how much you're willing and able to do to repair it. And again, we'll show you a couple of those tricks here in a second.
But the good thing is none of it's real expensive to fix. It's just not a little bit of guts to take the project on. I mean, it's some wood costs. It's not huge expensive restoration costs.
Yeah. A couple other things that you're going to want to check are the electrical, and that includes the interior electrical. Does the 110 volt, when you plug it in, does that work? Does it have a 12 volt battery system? And the exterior lighting. The other main thing when you're trying to get it home is tires, brakes, and bearings. And you need to be prepared for this when you go out to pick up a trailer, and if you've seen it already, you might want to take some tires with you, tires and wheels. You can see this trailer we went and looked at. This was up on the side of a hill, way up out of nowhere. It was a long drive to go check it out. And when you get there and you see that the wheels are below grade, that could pose problems with rusty rims, leaky tires. That tire might not even hold air. So if you bring some of your own tires, you're probably going to be in a better position to retrieve something like that. With vintage trailers, there's only a couple of different lug bolt patterns. There's a 5 on 4.5 and a 5 on 5 and a 6 lug, and they're pretty discernible which is which. So you know what to take. There's not many other options than that. So trailers are going to fall into one of those categories. Old tires are old and they're rotten. We always try to take a set of new tires with us when we go, but
it only takes once being stuck on the side of the road.
Yeah, or having a tire shred off of the rim and do damage to a trailer that you picked up that was nice. So tires and bearings are the main thing. Slapping some grease in there and getting it tuned up for the trip home is valid for sure. You want to tell them about VIN numbers?
No.
Okay.
VIN numbers are not my expertise.
All right.
I always give it back.
All right. Well, I will continue rambling on then. With the VIN number, in the 50s and 60s, VIN numbers were just serial numbers. They weren't really like a VIN number like we know today, where you can punch it into some computer and it's going to tell you what color it was originally, what floor plan you had. That wasn't the case. They were just serial numbers. And some of the bigger manufacturers like Spartan or Shasta may have had some sort of method to their madness with their serial numbers. You can see here the Spartan door plate is in the door jamb on Spartans, and it does tell you kind of the length. So the 35, I believe, is the length. It's an A-body trailer. So these serial numbers do tell you a little bit, but typically when you see a canned ham trailer, it's this little vintage, or
sorry, our camping buddy is joining us.
We have a distraction that we thought was going to sleep through this. So typically what you'll see is a VIN number on the frame like this, and that can be on either side of the frame between the body of the trailer and the hitch. And then sometimes you'll also see these plates on trailers with the number stamped into them. But those are the VIN numbers, and when you get a vintage trailer, a lot of times they may not have the paperwork with them, and it just depends really on the state you live in. Some states it's not that big a deal to get a VIN number. Some states it can be more trouble. We're in California, so we're not too worried about buying trailers without titles. Where we're at, we use a title company, which you may or may not have in your state, a registration service to help us get titles on old trailers. But the main thing you might want to check is call the DMV and check it for back fees, because in California
Yes.
We've got a trailer right now that we bought that's got $700 in back registration fees on it, and over time,
Depending on what you paid for it, that could double the
yeah,
price.
yeah. As long as you
So,
know, that was a trailer we got for free, so I don't really care that it's got $700 in back fees, and we're not putting it on the road right now. So
and again, free is never free,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So free is $700. I paid $300 one time for a trailer that cost me $500 in back fees, and it was barely worth the $300. So you learn, and if it's got back fees, sometimes those will wash off after several years. So just be aware. Check it before you go. Check the paperwork that it coincides with the serial numbers on the trailer itself, and just make sure you know what you're getting into. What are we off to next?
Oh, um,
Oh, it looks like restoring your vintage trailer.
so this to me is all about your abilities. Paul has more details. And I have to say, I have to butt in a little bit here because I don't have a lot in the way of specifics on restorations and finding a trailer. I walked beside Paul and all of this, but you saw me get so emotional at the beginning. The hobby is so much more than just a budget to me. And it's the people and the love of camping and being outdoors and how we can get there. So this is really about how we get to that final destination and making part of it, part of the process, part of our story. So anyways, you can keep rambling.
yeah, no problem. The nice thing about vintage trailers is they are pretty simple. There's not a lot of complication to them. You can see here, it's basically a little stick frame. This one's infilled with the foam insulation, the silver-backed foam insulation, and then Tim's putting new siding on the trailer and trimming it off there. And so this was a pretty heavy-duty restoration that Mike was doing from kind of the ground up on this, again, a little Shasta trailer. But there's just not a lot to them. And again, we're on the Van Life Summit today and sharing with you about vintage trailers, but really the Van Life Academy All Access Pass has information on all kinds of components and everything that you can use, components and techniques and things that you can use on vintage trailers or vans or buses or whatever you're deciding to restore. If a van is going to be your project, or you decide, hey, maybe a vintage trailer would be cool, those types of training passes can have a lot of things for you no matter what you're doing. With the vintage trailer, they are pretty simple. You probably know people that are maybe better at you than some things. I definitely do, and I lean on friends for help with stuff. It is fun to get together and restore trailers and work on these things. So, lean on your lean on your family and friends and Facebook groups and all that stuff to get the information that you need to do your restorations.
And I think also you have to decide what you want in your trailer. We know that we don't like to cook inside our trailers. So for us to spend a lot of time and effort putting in a stove and an oven, it's not that important to us. And so we never make that a priority. Where to some of our friends, when they go camping, eating is their top priority and they want all of those amenities. So I think that that's one thing that you need to do no matter how you're camping. You need to decide what fits your camping style, and you can add those things as you go along. We've been doing this for over 20 years and we've learned what we use and what we don't. And that just comes with experience.
When you get ready to restore your vintage trailer, you can do a couple of different things. There's no right or wrong way. Obviously, the older, more classic historical trailers, you'd probably want to go with a more original type restoration. But if you're getting something up in the 60s and 70s that is in pretty poor shape, certainly do whatever you'd like to do with that restoration. It doesn't really matter. You can paint the interiors, you can do the exteriors as you like, and we see all kinds at rallies. So So don't be afraid to do what you want. Some people like the lighter, brighter white interior. We're more traditionalists, so most of our trailers look like the trailer on the left, and that's just our preference. But there's certainly room for everybody's interpretation.
You won't get in trouble. Well, with us. There are some diehard, keep it original fans. But I think it's your trailer, you're camping, you would make it how you're going to use it and enjoy it.
The other thing that you need to consider if you're going to resell this trailer at some point, the more personalized you make it, you can see here Glenn's very personalized Annie Oakley trailer, is going to have a more limited market because you've got to find somebody that likes the same kind of style. Where if you do a more traditional restoration, it's probably going to be more marketable. And you can see here, this is Trailers Gone Wild, but you can add amenities and add as you go. This was at a Christmas rally, so the lights and everything were probably added on just for that. But do it as you go and make it fit your style. So you've moved pages on me, and now
So we're on to common mistakes to avoid.
Oh, mistakes to avoid.
Yes.
Follow your notes. Common mistakes to avoid. So let me get over here. You want back to us?
Yep.
Okay. Main slideshow fade. There you go. Now you're up. All right. Main mistakes to avoid as we make a few mistakes here ourselves. So with a vintage trailer, they are a very simple construction, and this image here shows you a couple of upright cabinets. And in your little canned ham type trailers, these are the support. This is what's holding everything up and together. So you can't just take these cabinets out. And we see that as a common mistake. If you want to have an open floor plan that's that open, then you need to get an aluminum frame trailer like an Airstream, something along those lines.
Or you won't have a trailer because they will just fall over. So upright cabinets need to stay in canned hams.
Yeah, they create that sheer strength that you need because it is just a little stick cabin, and without some of that sheer strength in an upright cabinet, tying everything together, tying the wall with the floor with the ceiling, you're going to have troubles. So definitely do not take those cabinets out. The other thing that's a common mistake, and I know people will argue with me about this, but the real typical, almost every trailer has this water damage in the vent. So this is from the top.
For wood frame trailers.
For wood frame trailers. Well, even you'd have trouble peeling an Airstream like this. But
yes.
But this is for 90% of these little canned hams have this rotten vent wood rot. And a lot of people, and even us, will try to repair that from the inside, pushing panels up and trying to make them fit and cutting patterns and things. And if you will do it the same way that the trailer was built originally in reverse and just peel the top of the roof up, you can see here, you can access everything from the joists, if you will, to this is the interior panel of wood here. And so if you just peel the ceiling up, take the joists out, replace the panel from the outside in, finish it and everything, varnish it, put it back in, put new joists in, put the roof down. It seems like a lot of extra work, but I'm telling you, it's the only way to do it right and make everything
It goes back
work
together the right way.
Yeah, and that's mistake number 3 is these things are not square. And if you try to build it square again or make it right, because you're a perfectionist, you're going to run into trouble. And this is the same little trailer, obviously, a little Terry that we did kind of the basic restoration on. It had a lot of rot in the top, in the vent, and in the front and the back. But you don't want to take the trailer apart completely and have it in that pile like that earlier slide. If you'll peel the front up and work on the top and then put the top back down and then work on the front, you can see here that we have the whole, this is looking straight into the front of the empty trailer. And so we did the vent first. You can see here we're peeled up and doing the vent. Then we do the repair. We put the roof back down, lay it right back down where we just peeled it up. We didn't take it off. And then we lay it back down, do this panel,
And
and
back
put
on
it together.
and back on topic, which is budget. This is time. I mean, you're paying for a few pieces of veneer, right? I mean, you're not paying, it's not a ton of material. It's just time, and you might mess one or two pieces of wood up, but you just do it. It's not a lot of expense in these restoration costs.
Yeah, if you can do it yourself, it's certainly a project that you can do for less money. It's not that big a deal. If you have to hire a lot of this work out, it can get expensive, but you can create some pretty stunning trailers yourself with just a little bit of practice. All right. Those are some tips and tricks on restorations and some mistakes to avoid. Once you've got your vintage trailer restored, now comes the fun part, frankly. And we want to talk a little bit about protecting your asset as well as what we do to have fun with these at events. So this does not look like fun. This is a trailer that was destroyed in a rollover accident, and not only is it very dangerous, but it does a lot of irreparable damage. And the main thing to think of when you're getting insurance on a vintage trailer is a market value policy as opposed to an agreed value policy. And so we've got some links to this at the end. We've got a URL for you to go to some links where we've saved some of this stuff for you. But the main thing is that a market value policy is going to only pay you what market value of the trailer is. And frankly, there's no blue books or anything for these things. And so a 1959 Shasta, they might tell you it's worth $300. And so what you want to really look for is maybe an agreed to value policy, which is more how they do classic cars and things that have more value than you may think. I don't know how to say that, but this Airstream trailer was probably worth a lot more than maybe what the insurance company wanted to pay for it. So if you have an agreed to value policy, you're going to get exactly what you agreed to with the insurance company. So we've got some more documentation. I don't want to go too far down that road selling you an insurance policy. The other thing to remember is that your liability extends from your vehicle. So you do have liability coverage just like you would with your vehicle, unless you're towing with a classic car, and then you need to check your classic car insurance because some do and some don't extend the liability from the vehicle to the trailer. Do you have something that you're gonna?
I see the fun part coming.
Yeah, the fun part's coming.
This is my part. We have a joke in our family that my son knew where all the food was at a rally. He knew all about where to get the free food. My daughter knew the names of all of the dogs that attended rallies, and my husband knew all the trailers, and I knew the people. So the people are the reason I love this hobby and why I think it's so valuable and just amazing.
And I'll tell them about the rallies.
So rallies are amazing. We do Trailer Fest vintage trailer rallies. So any trailers built prior to 1972, we get together and we have rallies from 50 people, 50 trailers, so 100 people up to 300 trailers, and we get together and it's like a 3-day car show party, and we camp together. We have themes. Almost all of our rallies are themed, and so we've done everything. You can see military appreciation. Our people are so creative and so crazy and a little bit scary weird because they are so creative. You can see here some flamingo tribe here going around the rally. And what are they? Like scooters and hairdress salon chairs and trailers that they've made. But this is at every rally. People are just incredibly fun, incredibly creative, and we just have 3, 4, now some of our rallies last up to a week because we're just like family. And so we did, what was that? I grew a bunch of pumpkins one year for
It was the
everybody.
fall deal, and it was that Hollywood?
I don't even, tiki. It was tiki, I think, because I can see the tiki in the background. But
Tiki Halloween.
Tiki Halloween,
Yeah.
that's right. We always kind of mix things up. And the next one we had Purple Rain, which was an
It was white wedding, a 1980s theme, and so this is a wedding vow renewal
by
with
Elvis.
with
You can see
Elvis Presley. You can see right here officiating, and then this is us over to the right hand side, and then we had a live band for our wedding reception. You can't see him, but back in the back somewhere back there was tiered wedding cakes, and I mean it was just crazy.
So
People
it's just-
bought corsages, and
It's just goofy. For a few $100s for the weekend, we have so much fun doing crazy. And like anything, like we've tried to tell our young adult children, like you get out of life what you put into it. If you're willing to put in and have fun and dress up and enjoy and be quirky, I mean, this hobby is amazing, and it's created family. Our family isn't close to us, and so these people have become aunts and uncles and grandparents and come to graduations and 4-H shows, funerals.
weddings.
So we just become family, and I think that's what's so beautiful about the camping hobby. No matter how you do it, if you do it in a van, if you do it in a vintage camper trailer, if you do it in a huge coach, the people that like to go camp have a very down to earth, maybe is what I'm trying. Just real people, and we just love them.
The one of the things that comes up as we wrap up here is the 10-year rule, and you'll hear people say, "Well, with a vintage trailer, I can't get into parks," and I've never had it happen. So maybe I'm not going to the fanciest parks. I'll give you that, and maybe
We are cheap.
we are cheap. We do camp on a budget, but we don't go to dangerous parks or shabby
No.
parks either. And we just haven't had that problem. Now we have decent trailers. We're not driving around in dumpy looking trailers. But that is not something we've ever had a problem with the 10-year rule and not being accepted into a park. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. It's not been a concern of ours. But as we wrap up here, I guess we'll just touch on some of the final things about being budget minded in this camping hobby, and then we've got a video that we'll wrap up with a URL where you can get more information from us and find out more about some of all of this stuff that we've talked about. For us, the main thing with the budget really these days is travel and keeping our fuel prices down. So it's no paid ad or anything, but we use Gas Buddy quite a bit. If you're not familiar with that app, we'd strongly suggest that. We also have our Costco card. Great pre-trip planning with the Costco card. You can go buy some chickens and get fueled up. And we don't so much like going to Costco once we've got a trailer behind us because it can be so crazy to get gas. But we do keep out here in the West, we've got Flying J and Loves. I think those are pretty cross-country truck stops.
Truck stops are super easy to get in and out of usually because they're big and tall and wide, and so when you're towing, it makes it easy in and out.
And we sign up for the discount cards there at the truck stops. And, other than that, you've got all the discount camping, Harvest Host, Thousand Trails, Passport America, Campendium, All Trails. We use all those apps, but mainly it's mitigating our fuel costs and keeping those things in check so we can continue to travel.
Hey, one last thing that you didn't hit on, that I didn't hear us hit on. When you do vintage, they hold their value typically. So you put in this time and you restore this trailer, and then you have these, you're done. You know, some of our people have aged out of the hobby and they need to sell it. Well, guess what? If you buy a brand new trailer, sometimes that money is just gone, which is fine. That's your hobby. But when you do vintage camper trailers, you pretty much can get your money back typically. I mean, you can always over restore anything, but typically they hold their value.
If you do the work yourself and you buy right, you should not probably lose money on a vintage trailer. This one here on the screen now is I want to say it sold for over $500,000 when it sold at auction. So not only are they money saving, but you know, if you do a good restoration, you could probably flip your trailer and even make money on it. So that's a definite advantage. That's probably not going to happen with a newer trailer or a newer RV, is they typically aren't appreciating in value.
And I feel like we have camped in a way that has allowed our family to go and experience things that were maybe beyond our means, but we were able to do it in a way that allowed us to take our kids across the United States and see things that so many families can't, because we are very budget minded, and we did do the work ourselves, and we did find out ways to make it work that otherwise would have been inaccessible to us.
With that, we'll wrap it up. We've got a video here to show you at the end if you'd like to stay, in a URL where you can reach us and give us a call anytime, reach out and ask us anything you'd like about vintage trailers. And thanks for joining us here. Get your all access pass, and we will see you later.
Every trailer has a life. People connect with what is going on around them, and it's so much history.
We've been doing Trailer Fest now about 8 years, and every year it doubled in size until we got to the max capacity. Now we rent the whole park, and it's like one big family getting together for a family reunion. My name is Paul Lasitanola, and I am the publisher of the Vintage Camper Trailers magazine. For us, the thing with the vintage thing, we've always been kind of old souls. So I've always had old cars. I've always collected old cars and driven old cars. And so for us, the vintage thing was kind of natural. When we started, it really was just because it was cheap, and we really didn't know if we'd even like camping. We live in the country, and so we're kind of used to that lifestyle. But when we had bought the old trailer, then we thought, well, geez, an old trailer and an old car, those would look cool together. Let's hook them up together, and then we've really got something cool. We've got over 200 trailers here this weekend, all vintage, all manufactured prior to 1969, and we are looking forward to a great time. We got into this, and it changed our world. My family has mostly passed away. My wife's family lives in Alaska, thousands of miles away, and so we're kind of here on our own, other than this community of hundreds of people that will do anything for us. Most of these people we've camped with for a decade, and we camp with them several times a year. We're eating together. We're waking up practically next to each other, all groggy, and you do get to know people on all levels.
Camping is all about making memories, making connections, taking a time out. We get so caught up in our day-to-day running to baseball and 4-H and church, and camping is just like a little stop in our life to say, okay, this is what matters. The people that we love, this stuff, we aren't going to get to take it with us. The only thing we're going to leave is the memories and the love.
Well, my husband got started in vintage trailers when he was 5 years old. If he was a good boy, he got to take his nap in his grandparents' 1956 Mercury trailer. And it was from those early days of taking his naps in the trailer that he got his love for vintage trailers and all the wood and warmth of the inside of the 50s era trailers. So when we were in the late 70s and early 80s and our kids were young and we were ready to start camping, he decided that we were going to fix up the old trailers and have our kids have the same experience he had. This is our current and probably our forever trailer.
It's become quite the passion for me.
We decided to do a trailer themed on Annie Oakley. The saloon door that swings in and out.
Each trailer and each individual has its own story and has its own connection, if you will. And so as you look at different trailers, you can probably match them up kind of like people and their pets, with who goes with which trailer.
To be here with all these folks doing what we like to do, which is camping. It's just fun.
We always have people that are excited to do what Paul dreams up. So I'm glad that I don't have to be the only one.
Trailer Fest is a great place to meet up with old friends, and every year we are blessed with bringing new people on board and making new friends that will probably be friends for a lifetime.